I'm drawing this hare using the stopper from the ink bottle. The ink that I'm using is the Rowney FW acrylic ink and it's black. I'm using it on an A5 pad of watercolour paper. It's always good to have a go with mixed media. I think you develop new techniques, you come across new ideas, and it's a really good way to relax if you're not sure what you want to draw. You've just got to put aside a little bit of accuracy when you work in this way, because you're not going to get an accurate photographic image using something like this, but you get a much more expressive and free image. So this all depends on your style, and for those of you that want to loosen up, it's a good way to work. It takes a little bit of practice and you can get blobs of ink coming out, so I would always recommend that you have some kitchen towel handy. You'll see afterwards I put some watercolour paints on. The ones that I use are the Sennelier set, the travel set, and I also use a little bit of acrylic paint to get the white of his eye back, which when you're drawing animals, the glint in the eye really gives you the character and brings them to life. So you must always remember to try and leave that little white glint there. But acrylic paint is a really good way of getting it back if you've lost it. So I use the acrylic, I use the watercolours, the ink, and I also use some Brusho. Just one colour, I use the Brusho Burnt Sienna and just put a little bit of that on whilst the paint's still wet. I obviously allowed the ink to dry before I put the paint on. And when you finish doing your ink drawing and you've got some pools of ink, you may want to just lift a little bit of that off with a tissue. And you'll see I also use the tissue for lifting a little bit of the paint off as well. So I'm drawing a hare today because of course we're in March and we associate March with hares. The good thing is that we have quite a few hares around here at the moment. We went through a few years where there weren't so many, and we do see quite a few of them back again now, which is nice. The main difference between your hare and your rabbit, if you want to spot them quickly, really is the length of their ears. They've got really long ears, but they've also got a much longer and more angular face. It's a little bit, you can see the skeleton very much. The rabbits look a little bit softer than the hares, and of course the hares are much bigger than a rabbit. So an animal like this is a really good drawing study because you can really see the shape of his skull. And if you go onto a website like Pixabay or Google Images and have a look at lots of different hares, you could perhaps have a go at doing a more detailed study after you've done this freer one as well. So again, that depends on your style. This is something that you could spend an awful lot of time studying and drawing, and look at all the lovely colours in that photograph as well. You've got some soft greys, and rabbits have this as well, those really soft warm greys. Also, when you're practicing your drawing, look at the measurements. So if you look at the length of his ears, they're pretty similar to the length of his face, and the length of his face from the top of his head to the bottom of his nose is pretty much the same width from the edge of his nose to the back of his neck. So compare measurements as you're going along. And like I said, try and get some character in there by being really free and easy with your drawing. So after I did the ink, I let the ink dry. It wasn't completely dry because you will notice it does move a little bit when I put my first lot of paint on. But let your ink dry. Like I said, suck up some of those pools before that. Once it's completely dry, then you put your paint on. But make sure the paint's still wet when you come to put your Brusho on, because you want your Brusho to go into wet paint. And I forgot to say that when I put my paint on, I gave it a little bit of a spritz of water first. So put the paint on, pop that Brusho on, and then you need to leave it. And sometimes you perhaps need to leave it overnight because you want to leave it to completely dry to see where that Brusho is going to go. Because you can't control this. So you can't really control the ink with the stopper. You can't control the watercolour with the paper being already wet. And you can't really control the Brusho. So that's where you get a lot of expressive marks, and it makes it a bit more interesting to look at. So always good to have a really good play with mixed media, because that's all we're doing. We're having a play, we're relaxing, and this goes back to the previous video, which I will link at the end, where we were talking about, you know, how to get your mojo back a little bit, and the importance of just playing with your art materials. Of course, if you haven't got the same materials as me, you might not have the ink, you might not have the brush or whatever. Just get out all the materials that you've got and have a go at doing something like this. And if you're doing your drawing with a brush or a pencil, whatever, try and use big materials. I've got some big chunky pencils actually, some big blocks of graphite, some big blocks of charcoal. Try and use bigger materials rather than a very dainty little pencil if you want to become a little bit more expressive. And perhaps set a timer as well, just give yourself a few minutes. I didn't speed up any of this video. I have edited it and taken out the bits where I wasn't doing anything particularly, but I haven't speeded any of it up like I normally do. So this is the real time, so it gives you an idea of how long it took me to do this. So set yourself a timer, sit back, relax, get all those materials out and just have a play and have some fun. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back again with you soon, and let me know in the comments below if there's any particular videos that you would like me to make for you. Bye bye for now.